Have you ever wanted to learn how to service your PENN Pursuit 43000 yourself? Well, let's go. What is going on, guys and gals? Today we're going to show you how to break down, service, and reassemble a PENN Pursuit 43000 size reel with some tips and tricks along the way. One thing to note here, this is a brand new reel. I'm simply doing a pre-use service on this for the customer. First thing we'll do is pull a schematic for this just so we have an exploded view or burst diagram of the parts and where they go. But you also get the part numbers in case you need to order something. Start by unscrewing this handle or taking it off, just going backwards, as you can see there, or counterclockwise, and just pulling that out. I'm going to start with the spool. I'm rotating that drag knob counterclockwise to take it off. And let's pop that out. Now I'm going to access the drag by taking a small screwdriver, sticking it in there, pushing inside one of those gaps and pushing up like so. Just kind of keep my finger over it so it doesn't go shooting somewhere, but it doesn't always do that. Now we can pull those drags out and see what they look like. And we'll do some cleaning on this. I won't be taking out that clicker there, but I will be adding some grease and oil or oil to it. I like to kind of clean all these things off with the old grease, even though this is unused, just so we put our own fresh grease on there. Now when you get to this spool, you can take your paper towel like this and just kind of wipe inside of it, but you can also take a toothbrush and then just kind of get the nooks and crannies by doing that. Now these drags are supposed to be dry, which they are. We are not going to leave them dry, but no, we have two HT100 drag washers and two keyed washers. We're going to take some drag grease and put that on there just like so. And you don't need too much of it, just kind of want to get the whole thing covered. And all these things that I will be using today, or most all of them, will be in the video description. So be sure to check that out if you're looking for some specific things that I use. Now I'll take one of these drag washers, stick that back inside. Make sure you have those going into the grooves right there. Otherwise it won't slip down in it. Next, the metal washer, and then our final or second drag washer with that on top. Now I'll take one end of that retaining spring, stick that in the slot that it goes in, like so, holding my finger in place, and then taking my finger or my other finger, pushing it in and down to getting it to set. Now this isn't going all the way, so I take my screwdriver at the end, make sure that everything is in that channel that it should be in, and that one's good. Now for the back side, I'm going to go ahead and grease right there because that has a tendency to rust. And we can use oil or grease on this click tongue. I tend to just use oil on it. Now let's do the handle. There's not a whole lot we're going to do here. We're going to wipe that down and just add some new grease to it. But we'll also add some grease inside there. Let me clean that out. Stick some grease inside right there and right there. Helps protect that from locking up and some of the threads. Now you can also add some oil right here and then just kind of work that in. Now let's go ahead and jump to the rotor and the bail assembly. We're going to work that shaft all the way down to the bottom, like so. Take our Phillips screwdriver, undo that for the rub guard, expose the screw under there. That screw is different than the other screws on the reel, so just take a note of that. But you see we have 4 screws that I'm undoing here. Now we can pop this cover off. like so. And now we can undo that screw right there. Keep the one separate, it's a little different size than the other one. Pull this shaft up and out, and now we can pull out the main gear, this block, and also this transfer or crossbind gear. By doing a screw that's right there. Then we just pop it up and out. Now we'll go ahead and undo that screw up there and then remove that nut so we can get the rotor off. It's counterclockwise to remove this. And you'll see under there we have a bushing that's inside of the pinion gear. We'll take that out in a sec. Rock as you pull up to get that off. We'll get this washer off there. Now to break down this bale assembly, we're going to loosen some screws here. Going to take screwdriver, loosen that screw. This is the non-line roller side. You can certainly do either or. I kind of vacillate between the two, so there's no specific one to do first. That pops off like so. You can rotate that, pull that off, and now we can undo this screw over here. Now note, I am keeping my finger over this bale arm itself because there's a spring under there that's under load and I don't want that kind of shooting up on me. Now I'm just gonna gently lift up with constant pressure on it and then slowly releasing that load. Now we can take this cover off to access the bale and the trip. This is the bale spring. This is the trip arm. And what's left is the line roller. Take this one. I'm gonna do that screw right there. And I'm gonna try to hold this in place so you can kind of see everything intact, but it may fall apart. If that happens, I will show you how it goes. So we'll have a collar or a washer. There's a plastic washer on top of that. There's a line roller with a bushing inside of it, and you also have a washer on that side. Now if you look at that line roller, you'll see there's one end that's thicker than the other. That thicker end will be going towards the bale wire. So just keep a note of that. We'll pop that out and then pop this off as well. And I will do a little bit of cleaning on here because you can see there's not a lot of stuff to do. And you can just kind of see what I'm doing to get it cleaned. Again, there's not a lot on here, so that's why there's not so much going on. But sometimes you have sand and a lot of crazy junk and stuff going on inside there as well. For that, you might want to use something like an ultrasonic cleaner to get rid of it. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is add some grease to that little groove right there where the trip arm sits. Some inside there, some around that post, looking like that. Now I'll take the other side, a little right there, some around the post, and we can do some here as well, and some on the bottom. Now we get to the bail wire, add some grease around there. Here you can add oil or grease if you want to. I prefer grease. I work in salt water mainly, so that's a better medium to use. Grease inside there. Grease all around this, even on the back side. Some inside right here, around this post, like so. Some over that hole right there. And same thing on this side. You can stick some inside here. That's where the end right there of the bail wire is going to go into. But I do also add oil on this. Helps thin this out a little bit and help it be a little more flexible. And we'll also go ahead and grease this trip arm. And I don't necessarily grease the bail spring, but I do grease this pivot right here. And if you wanted to, you could grease this bail wire, or sorry, bail spring. I just don't always do it. So to put this together, we're going to take one washer, stick it on there like that. Take the bushing, we'll stick it on like so, it goes on either way. Take our line roller, make sure that thick end is going towards the bail wire like that. Put that washer back over that collar, stick that on like so, and then we can take our bail arm like that, and then adding the screw to it. Now I'm going to tighten this down, but I'm not going to go all the way down. So I'm going to get to the bottom. That's the bottom right there, and that doesn't really move. I'm going to back this up slightly, just so I have some play in that bail arm. Now we can take our bail spring, stick that onto the pivot like that. Take our trip arm, that long end will be facing down, so like so. Pushing it all the way down in there and then pushing it all the way to the top. We can rest our bail spring assembly over it looking just like that. Now I'm going to take this cover that up. And most of the times you can go all the way down on this to secure the cover there. Sometimes you need a little bit of play in there. So I'm going to screw it all the way down, but then back it up a little bit. About right there will work, just in case I need that extra space when I put that bail arm on. Now I'm going to take the bail arm, and that hole right there will be going over this post for the bail spring. So like so. Note that that bail spring assembly is under the trip arm. Now I'm going to gently push down and in at an angle until I feel it fall over it. Then I'm going to check to make sure it's all set. Feels like it is, so I'm going to go ahead and screw it in, and I'll show you what I mean afterward. Let's make sure we screw this cover down, and let's tighten this right there. Now you can look under here, and if you see that trip arm moving when you open this bail spring or open this bail arm all the way open, then you know you're in the right position. Notice we're still loose here, and the reason is because we still have to come to this side to set this assembly up. So I'm going to stick it on like so. I'm going to add some oil inside here, kind of work that in. Then I'm going to drop this down and put it over that post, and then secure it with the screw. Now when we've got everything screwed down and secured, we're going to go ahead and tighten this line roller screw right here, then do one final test on it. Make sure it flips properly, which we can see that it's doing, and that's always good. Then we'll check the line roller, and that's moving as well, which we always appreciate. Now let's go ahead and finish breaking the rest of this reel down. We're going to undo those 3 screws to get this pinion stack out. We can lift that cover off. Pull this straight up like so. Leave that collar down there. That came from inside right there, in that little bracket. Pull everything off. And we'll pull out this collar as well. You have a washer on top, a bearing inside of a cup. This bearing with the washer or collar underneath it. And then you have this anti-reverse clutch. So the setup or layout will be looking like this, with this bushing being up here and the other one being at the bottom. Now we can pull this bearing out. You have a cover over here that we can take off. Now we do have this piece left in here that I don't normally take out. It guides the crosswind block up and down, or helps guide it. So all we have left to do here is just kind of clean these things up, and I'll come back to you when that's done. All right, welcome back. Now we're gonna add some grease in different places. You can kind of just follow along. But the goal here is to have this reel spin as freely as possible. So I'm gonna do very light coatings on this one. And that's just based for the customer, that's all. A little bit inside there, a very little bit around that post, some under here. And we do want to add a decent amount inside here where that pinion stack will go. Like that. I'm gonna add some grease to this ramp. It will come off, I know this, but I do just in case I forget to put it on later on. Now I didn't show you this one. That thrust washer came off of here. I'm adding a little bit of grease on top, like that, and some on the bottom. We can also add some here where that's going to go inside that block right there. And that's about all I do for the shaft. We can take our thrust washers, stick that back on there like that. And now I'll go ahead and grease up some of these things. The first thing that you'll see me putting in will be that pinion stack. A decent amount around right there with that post where it goes inside the block. But for the gears, a light amount of grease. That's just a preference on this one, but you can certainly put as much grease or as little as you want. I still make sure I grease the entire surface area of these things, just so there's a layer of protection on them. Same thing for this main gear. And as you can see, like I said earlier, I am greasing the entire surface area of all these metal pieces. And that's just to help add a layer of protection against them corroding or getting rusted away. Now inside that hole right there, I will add a decent amount of grease so it helps that handle from not getting frozen or locked inside that main gear. Now let's jump over to this right here. We're going to add a layer of grease on top of this metal piece because same reason, but it's still very light. And I'll do a light amount of grease on the inside right there where that bearing will sit. Not too much, just enough to add a coat of protection there. Now for the block, I like to add in general a little more grease than I do for the rest of the reel. This one I'm going to put still a light coat inside there. All right, now before we go further, we're going to go ahead and oil these bearings. I have a couple over here for the pinion stack that you may not see on camera, but I'm oiling them also. And I will take and work that in. Like so. I did that because I want to go ahead and put one of these bearings inside here so I don't forget to put it in when I put the reel together. Make sure it's flush or fully seated. And now we're going to take our pinion stack and put that together. First thing we can do is take this bushing, stick that back inside here. The way I'm going to do that is using my tool. Just kind of getting it lined up. Like so. Push that down all the way. And now we can grease up some of these things. There's not a lot here to grease, but we'll grease this. And I'll show you the anti-reverse clutch in a sec. Now, since it's a brand new anti-reverse clutch, there's nothing we really need to do to it. However, if it were not, you would open it up to look for some rust spots or anything inside there. Any signs that this is going bad on you, because you'll want to replace it if that happens. Now we'll take our pinion gear. Again, a light amount of grease on there. Make sure you get those threads at the top. No one likes a rotor nut frozen to the pinion bearing or to the pinion gear. Now we can take our washer, put that on over it. First bearing, then our anti-reverse assembly. Rotate until it falls in place because it's keyed. And now we can take this like so. I like to just put it in, then put it on top. Now I like to take it like this and pinch it together before I put it inside. But you do want to note that the flat side of that anti-reverse clutch is what's facing down towards the main gear. But before I put this in, I'm going to add an extra layer of grease on top of this also. If you can tell, I have PTSD about these things getting frozen inside there, or inside that housing right there. You're right, I do. Thin layer of grease with my fingers on here. Put that on, and then we'll secure it with the screws. Now when that's all secured, we're going to take this washer, put it on top, and take our bushing and stick it inside the pinion stack or pinion gear like that. Now let's go ahead and put this crosswind gear in there. We're going to stick it in with that post towards the bottom somewhere like that. Secure it with our screw. After we snug it down, we want to make sure it turns, and we can see that it's still turning, so that's good. And now we're going to take our rotor, put this on, make sure our washer is on there, which we see that it is. And before we do it, like I said, I might forget, add a little more grease to that ramp right there. Then rotate this until it falls in place. We can take our washer, that round one, stick that on like that. Then we'll take our nut and secure that clockwise to tighten. And we are going to snug it down. We want to get one of those flat sides towards one of those holes right there. And we don't want to go too tight on this, but we want to tighten it. And that's close to right. Let's see if we can go a little tighter on this. We don't want to over tighten these things because we want to have a good spin. Take this lock washer here, drop that over, and then we'll secure it with the screw. Now we'll take our shaft, put that through the hole. We want to make sure that deeper cut flat side is facing up towards the sky like this. Take our block. That channel will be going on top of that post right there. So we'll just drop that in place. You do want to make sure that end right there is under that plate. Now we can drop our main gear in. And note that main gear is going down before that shaft goes through. Now that's through, we're going to hold onto the block, flat side facing up. And then we're going to work that in. like so. Now we just go ahead and secure it with the screw. One tip here is that if you have a small screw and you're having issues holding onto it, take some grease, add to the tip of your screwdriver, and that'll secure it to where you can put this in like this. Now we have some shims that came off of that main gear. I'm going to put all of them back on there. Your number of shims may vary depending on your reel, but even the same reels can have different numbers of shims. Drop the bearing on, and I'm going to cover it up like so. I'm going to get a feel for it. Feels good. Now all we have to do is screw those screws in on the side housing. Remember, this one screw is a little different, that goes towards the bottom. And now I'm going to add a little bit of grease right here, and the reason I'm doing that is because this side cover is metal, and we don't want salt water getting inside there, just settling and start eating away at that metal. And I'm also going to protect that screw right there for the same thing. Now we can cover that up and secure it. I'm going to put this side cap or bearing cover on. Now we're going to put this spool on there. And thanks for watching, guys. If you appreciated the video, please hit that thumbs up button. If you like content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. And I will see you guys next time.